What's up, guys? Welcome back. I left you guys off last video with getting kind of the front sleeves torn down, at least one of them. Worked on designing the steering rod or the steering arm that I'm going to mate to the Mark 1 Airlift Performance front struts. Today, Corey's up here. We're going to kind of work on the knuckles. So my plan is for this is to get the hubs pressed out, get the wheel bearings pressed out, get the tie rod mounts cut off because I don't need those anymore since I'm obviously making the appropriate located ones up on the strut body. I don't need these anymore. So I'm going to cut those off, clean everything up, clean the whole knuckle up, paint them. I wanted to get them powder coated, but time just isn't in our favor at the moment. So after I get the hubs and the wheel bearings pressed out, I'm going to get the wheel bearings out that I got from ECS and make sure that they're the same as this one here, which I'm returning to my friend Pete. But this one here with the correlating part number has the correct ID to fit the POLO hubs. And that's key because that will allow me to use the POLO axles. So that's part number one. The other thing I want to do is get the factory steering arms cut down and get the taper part out. That way I can utilize that. I think tomorrow I'll be at Nick's machining those down to get an appropriate precision OD diameter, so I can actually cut these out of steel and be able to weld those in basically. So yeah, just moving on the front end of the POLO. Luckily the rear is pretty straightforward. The rear is basically bolt in with the POLO upper setup. So the front is where all the work is. Yep. Use that pipe. They don't give you much. I don't know why I brought it up that far last time I used it. Yep. All right, so what pool are we betting that the inner race of the wheel bearing is coming out with it? Or the outer race, I mean. The whole outer race of the wheel bearing. Oh, of course it's coming.
Oh, it's coming out.
Yep.
There it is.
Always. This is why I do this stuff here, because I don't have all this tooling in my place yet. They look, I don't want to jinx it. They look good. Like they look like they're going to come out nice and easy, but I shouldn't have said any of that, right? No. Crazy. There we go. I think that was the ticket. Actually, I knew that was going to happen. Yeah, we got it out. It took like 4 hands working screwdrivers around to pry the thing out. Yeah, well, easier to get locked in the press now that hub's out of there. I quickly started second guessing, like, wait, do these load from the front or the back? There we go. Uh-oh. Oh, no. That's what was happening.
Oh, is it going in?
Yep.
Over? Let's give it a little tap.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Oh, yeah. You
Or just pull it apart. Why does everything have to be such a big deal? All right, so here's the deciding factor. These are 64 mil on the dot. These are the ones that came out of the knuckle, but the ID of this wheel bearing is too big for the POLO hub flange. So I will demonstrate that. Let me put my gloves on. Now I'm going to put my foot in my mouth if this fits in right. But that ID should be significantly larger than that OD. So that's, first of all, that's crazy. So that's good to know. Wow. Okay. So here's the deal. When these were when 80 or 81 to 84 Rabbit stepped up axle sizes. And I don't know if that's when they went from 90 mil to 100 mil, but they went up in sizes and the ID of the wheel bearing got larger, right? So I had heard that 74 to 80 were the wheel bearings that I needed. So when these were in the knuckle at Pete's, I actually had my hubs there, and they're obviously in the hub. or the hub's in the knuckle. So from the back, I pushed it in, and there was like what seemed to be a mil or more of play. So I was like, well, those are too big. But luckily, he had this wheel bearing in a box with a part number on it that it fit into. So I was like, well, maybe that's all I need. So apparently it was just fitting into the bevel like that, and I thought that was too loose.
Yeah.
Which it was, but now once I push farther, that fits. See, it's already grabbing.
Damn.
Holy cow. So as I said before you started recording, you know, I was like, well, maybe I didn't even have to push those out, but it'd be nice to have new wheel bearings in there. So that's a 64 mil OD. So let's go to the new bearings and see what we got. Huge shout out to ECS again for the packaging. Oh, cool. They sent some shirts. Sweet. Thanks, guys. So we got a shirt. We got a little keychain. I know a guy that makes some genuine leather keyrings. Stickers. Some AEM koozies.
Nice.
I told you I made a bunch of AEM leather keyrings recently.
Yeah.
I made a whole bunch. I made hundreds of keyrings for AEM. So thanks to the AEM guys for coming to Ludwick's garage for some merchandise. Plate frame. Cool. I did not know this was going to be an unboxing. So here's the wheel bearings. So let us go to the calipers here. 64. Can I get a 64, please? Yes, sir. 6396. There we go. Yeah, well, and actually I haven't even tried to make sure that hub will fit in there. I didn't take a measurement on the ID. That's it. That's the one. So now I gotta get the outer wheel bearing race off. Just like that.
And if they're real stubborn, just heat it in one spot.
Yeah.
Heat one edge of it to help expand it, and then take the hammer to it.
Well, I'll do the other one when we get back. So Corey finally brought the 190 up. He's been driving a Tacoma for a while, and this has just been kind of sitting. What year is this? 91. So it's some of you Mercedes guys will know. It's got the big door cladding. It's got the longer hood. Mine was an 85. They started in 84 here in America, and I can't remember what was different about my front end, but I had a different front end and had the small door cladding. But mine and his are both 2.3s. Makes me miss mine a lot. I was running 16s. These are 17s? 17s. Saubers. I'm telling you, 5 spokes look good on absolutely everything. And this 190 is no exception. Making me miss my 190. We could be doing 190 things.
Yeah.
You should find a 16 valve dog box.
Yeah.
Put a dog box in it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mine was a factory 5-speed. They're kind of rare in a 5-speed, but mine was just a normal H pattern. The Cosworths, the 2.3 16 valve Cosworths here in America came with the dogleg pattern 5-speeds. But regardless, you can still find the 5-speeds that'll bolt up to this, and you might be able to do that. Just find a factory 5-speed 190, do the swap.
Yeah.
If you want to keep it long enough.
Yeah. I'd get tired of the regular 2.3 real quick though. I'd want to put something
Oh
on it.
yeah. All right, so the knuckle's upside down, obviously, but I'm going to cut the tie rod mounts off, get cleaning them up, and there's a lot of scaling and stuff on this knuckle. Just kind of wire wheel it and just clean it up before I paint it. And yeah, then get the other one cut off. We got one of the outer races off, one of the POLO hubs. Still got to get this one off too. So it's going to work on a few different things this afternoon. Just try to tidy up some of the loose ends of the checklists of things to do. Yeah, wear eye protection and a face shield when you're using these things without a guard. With people with like half those discs sitting in their face. It's my biggest fear. Holy cow. That's what I was hoping for, to get it as tight to that as possible so I don't have to get in there too hard with the grinder. All right, guys, we're getting close to the end of the day. Corey was around for most of the day. We just kind of hung out and got coffee and got lunch, and we tinkered in the shop. We didn't get as much done as I really wanted to, but it was a good day to just hang out. But update on the 635 CSI. Check this out. From what my friend Balthazar in Munich, Germany at BMW said, that it should be a 265/5 gearbox in this car, which will make it the dogleg. So again, the car doesn't run, hasn't run in 20 years. My friend Nick, who I got the car from, stopped by this morning and dropped off a folder of paperwork on the car, which is amazing. So it turns out two good friends of mine, Rick and Randy Courier, who own Squam Lakes Auto up the street from me. Randy owns it, but Rick worked with him for years. They specialized in bringing gray market cars, Euro model cars, Mercedes, Porsche, BMW, over from Germany in the 80s and 90s. That was like their specialty. And there's a bunch of receipts from this car at their shop in the early 90s to the mid 90s. I even saw Rick a couple days ago. I went up to his shop and mentioned Nick's father's name and the car. And Rick was like, yeah, that was blue, wasn't it? And I'm like, yep. So he remembers the car. And oddly enough, my friend Steve, who I got my BMW 700 from, if you guys go way back in the videos, not too far back, but I did a build thread video about my 1960 BMW 700. Steve, the guy who had the 700 with a boneyard full of BMWs, also worked on this car. There were more receipts of service that Steve did on this car than the boys up at Squam Lakes Auto up the street from me. So it's really cool to kind of start connecting the dots about what they were doing on the car, what kind of servicing, what kind of issues they were dealing with the car. It tells a history, it kind of puts the story together. So that being said, Corey and I were just kind of walking around the car today. Nothing really worth filming. We were just kind of talking about the car. Corey hadn't seen it in person yet. And we're just kind of like reveling in how amazing this car is. But we got the shift linkage loosened up, and I want to show you guys this. All right, so this thing's filthy. I haven't touched the interior yet, and it's quite discouraging really how bad a shape this thing's in. All right, so no shift pattern anywhere. You know, the old 5 Series, the E12s had the little pattern up here. No pattern, right? So here we go. As usual, slap over and up. We got reverse, neutral. Here we go. Over, down is first, over and up second, third, fourth, and fifth. We have ourselves a dogleg gearbox in the CSI. Holy cow. Holy cow. So, and here's what I'm most excited about. What's really, really cool about that car, in my opinion, coming from America, who's an 80s and 90s European motorsport nerd, is that a dogleg box production car is really quite rare here in America. The 2.3 16-valve Mercedes 190s in manual came in a dogleg gearbox. Some of the W124 Mercedes came in dogleg gearboxes. The very rare R129 SL500 Mercedes, which are super rare in a manual. And from what I've read, all the manuals of those cars came in a dogleg gearbox. But they're super rare here in America. So to have that car have a factory production 5-speed dogleg gearbox in it, to me is just like, you get that warm, fuzzy feeling inside. That's the coolest thing in the world. So I cannot wait. I'm hoping things come together well on that car, because I cannot wait to drive that car through some of the northern New Hampshire mountain roads and be banging gears between second and third in line with each other. That, to me, is the coolest thing ever. So that's a quick little side note and things I learned on the E24 today. Back on the Polo. Worked on getting the old outer wheel bearing races that were seized to the Polo hubs when I pressed them out. I got those off, so the Polo hubs are ready to get pressed into the Mark 1 knuckles, the Mark 1 rabbit knuckles, when I finish cleaning them up. But I've got the tie rod arms cut off. I haven't finessed them yet. I'm going to clean them up some more and then wire wheel them and get them painted. And then I'll be ready to push the wheel bearings in, press the hubs in, and those are ready to go. basically I've just been working on cutting the tie rod arms off, and they're cast and they're really thick, but I don't need them. I could install these in the car just as they are. And this tie rod mount, you'd never see it with the wheel on. But this tie rod mount will never get used again as long as they're in the Polo. So since these are becoming Polo knuckles, the OCD in me wants to cut these off and clean them up. And that's what I did on the Mark II knuckles I put in the Fox, and the Mark I knuckles I put in the Polo Derby years ago. So I've cut these off, and I've just spent the last, half hour or so massaging the metal and getting it all cleaned up. And so this is basically both sides. One I've kind of finessed a little bit. The other one I haven't touched yet. I've just cut the arm off. But again, you're not going to see these once they're in the car. So I could work all night long getting these things perfect, but where I'm at now is basically where I'm going to stop. I think it looks fine the way it is now. And to be honest, it's kind of a cool looking knuckle now that that tie rod mount isn't on there. So these have, in essence, kind of become Mark II Polo specific knuckles now. All right, guys, so I'm calling it a night. Got the work area kind of cleaned up. And I got one knuckle done. It's not cleaned up and painted yet, but yeah, I got one tie rod mount all finessed and cleaned up to where I want it. The other one I haven't touched yet. The tie rod mount is cut off, but I still need to take the time to finesse it and kind of massage it and make it look like it was never there really before I clean it up and paint it. But I had to get to cutting the tie rod end inserts out of the tie rod plates, the tie rod arms. I think I've thrown them out now. But yeah, I had to get those out because tomorrow I'm hoping to go up to Nick Acton's shop and get set up on his lathe and basically turn them down to where the insert is there. You can see on the inside there where that insert is. So basically I'm just going to turn it on the lathe till I'm touching off of that insert and then go to an agreed diameter basically that, is a precise measurement that I will then go to my computer and laser cut another cardboard piece, but laser cut a hole large enough for this to press in, and then I will weld it into the tie rod arm once we get it cut out of steel. I also got the other Subaru threaded body torn down, cut all the brackets and guides off of it and smoothed it up. So that's about it. That's going to be it for this episode, guys. I know we did a lot today. It might not seem like it looking at the episode, but all this stuff is pretty tedious. Stoked that I've gotten through most of that. Also, like I said before, got the outer Polo wheel bearing races knocked off, the Polo flanges of the hubs, got all the Mark I knuckles cleaned up, got the hubs pressed out, got the wheel bearings pressed out after getting all of the snap rings, inner and outer snap rings out without breaking any of them because you have to reuse those. So yeah, it's weird they don't supply those with new wheel bearings, but all 4 snap rings are saved. Got those out, clean the knuckles up, all that stuff's ready to go to the machine tomorrow. My father also found some 1/2-inch thick plate steel that we had laying around. And that's what I'm gonna cut those tie rod mounts out of, so I don't need to gusset them. They're gonna be overkill. It's gonna be more than enough strength. And those tie rod end tapered inserts are about 14 mil thick, and 1/2 inch is just over 12 mil thick. So when those press in, I'll have a little bit of a lip to weld top and bottom to get them in. But yeah, luckily my dad's ArcLight Dynamics CNC table has a pretty powerful hypertherm plasma machine, and we can pierce cut 1/2-inch steel. So that is a godsend. Actually, take a look at this. This is a 1/2-inch thick Meredith Fire Department, which my dad is a firefighter of, Maltese, that he plasma cut out of 1/2-inch steel. And there's hardly any chamfer on that kerf of that plasma cut. I mean, it is a straight cut. And he pierce cut the MFD initials as well. But that's it, guys. Another detailed, slow-moving episode. But seriously, thank you guys so much for the support in the comments. Even on this last video of starting to cut all this stuff down. Really appreciate the support and that you guys kind of enjoy these long-winded, detailed kind of brainstorm sessions. They're kind of like a brainstorm episode of what's going on in my head. And a lot of you guys in England and Europe that have done stuff like this before, I really appreciate all of you guys reaching out on both YouTube and Instagram about different ways that you've done it as well. And like I mentioned before, this is the third time I've done this type of suspension with a Polo, but it's also the third way I've gone about it. Each time I do something a little bit different to both experiment and to see if I can get better results. And yeah, so I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode.